AITA for telling my mother-in-law I'll pay for my wedding myself if she can't respect my few wishes. I, 25 male, will be marrying my fiancée G, 25 later on this year. I proposed to her a little bit before Christmas and we're aiming for a November wedding. She has 2 older brothers, only one of which has gotten married, and for one reason or another, my mother-in-law 68 female was not involved in the planning of the wedding at all. She was pretty hurt over this as she's always wanted to help plan her children's weddings, so when we got engaged, she offered to pay for most of the wedding, and in return we agreed to let her help with the planning. In my mind, as long as I'm marrying G, I'm happy, so I was okay with this. The only thing I'm really sticking to that I refuse to change is what I'm wearing. My mother passed away when I was very young, and she was the daughter of first-generation Scottish immigrants. My grandparents moved from the north of Scotland in the 60s, and my mother was brought up learning about her parents' culture. Since she passed away, I've had a hard time connecting to that side of my family, and after my grandfather died a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to wear her family's kilt when I get married. I talked about this with my fiancée before we got engaged, because it is an unorthodox idea, but she thought it was sweet and liked the idea. A few days ago my mother-in-law came up to me and told me I'd have to wear a traditional tux instead of a kilt. When I asked her why, she said it went against the view she had of G's wedding, and that the colors of my mother's tartan clashed with the colors she had chosen for the wedding. When I told her that this was pretty much the only thing I'm unwilling to budge on, she brought up how she's paying for most of the wedding and wearing a tux is the least I could do. When I brought this up to G, she echoed the sentiment her mother had made about paying for the wedding. I'm able to pay for it myself, and I told G that I thought she understood how important this connection to my mother was to me, especially because she can't be there, and if she wasn't able to accept that, then I'd pay for the wedding myself. She told me I was being a bit of a D for being this stuck to what I want to wear, and once my mother-in-law heard that I would just pay for the wedding myself, she got really upset because it's always been her dream to plan G's wedding. I'm feeling like a bit of a D right now and was wondering if I should just wear a standard tux. My family's kilt is really important to me, but this is causing more conflict than I thought it would. Update. So the past 24 hours or so have been eventful. I took most people's advice and talked to my fiancée about this issue before going forward. Her siding with her mother like this and going against me was really out of character, so I felt like I really needed to figure out what was on the go. The long and the short of it comes down to money. She doesn't make as much of a salary as I do. I make almost 2.5 times her salary. Despite this, she's pretty insistent of things being 50-50 between us. Our finances aren't combined until after marriage because of some weird tax issues and legal things in our home region. But even with me making more, she insists we're a team and have to go 50-50 on big things: rent, car payments, electrical, wedding, etc. So even though I'm able to pay for the wedding myself, she's not able to pay for the half she feels like she wants to pay. Because of this, she's really clinging to the idea of her mother paying for our wedding, even though I'd be more than happy to pay for it all myself. We talked yesterday evening, and she said that since she accepted her mother paying for the wedding, their relationship has become pretty strained, with mother-in-law pretty much taking over the wedding planning. Apparently mother-in-law was initially pushing for a tropical destination wedding in Jamaica, an idea G put down quickly as she knows I hate the idea of destination weddings. And mother-in-law had even tried to get final say on the dress G was going to wear, as well as she wanted final say over who the bridesmaids were. She wanted her friends' daughters who G is not close with in the party. I've had a pretty good relationship with mother-in-law so far, so I found it kind of odd how she went total Momzilla, but I have noticed her and G drifting apart a bit, although I never thought it was related. A few people thought that G actually hated the idea of the kilt and that MIL acting as the bad guy to try and change my mind, and you're not completely wrong. She doesn't hate the idea, but really doesn't like that the other male members of the bridal party will be wearing tuxes while myself and my cousin would be wearing kilts. She wanted consistency across the board and had expressed this to her mother. Mother-in-law took this as the opportunity to get me to wear a tux instead of getting the groomsmen to wear kilts, and had the wedding colors changed without G's knowledge to contrast with my family's tartan. When I talked to G yesterday, she said that she had just gotten out of a massive fight with her mother over changing the colors, and really wasn't in the mood to start another argument with her. She acknowledged she was in the wrong for siding with her mom, and seemed genuinely sorry. She said that in the stress of planning a wedding while having an overbearing mother, she had thought of the kilt as another detail, and had forgotten the significance of it to me, and that she was really sorry. In the meantime, a few changes have been made. My mother-in-law is no longer paying for the wedding, and no longer involved in planning. I'm going to pay half, as G never wanted me to pay more than half by myself for something that's for both of us, and my father-in-law is covering the parts that G is going to have some trouble covering. Mother-in-law is unaware of this. Father-in-law and mother-in-law are still together, however he's not telling her he's helping pay. We're still getting married in November. Wedding colors have been changed back to match my kilt, and we've decided to rent kilts in our regional tartan for the rest of the groomsmen so that they match the aesthetic. Thankfully, no deposits were put down on things like tux rentals, bridesmaid dresses, or decorations, so no money lost. I know a lot of people told me to seriously reconsider marrying G, and going into our talk last night I really was, but I'm happy with how things turned out since this really was an anomaly in her behavior, and I really am excited to marry her. From the comments, I'm happy this seems to be working out the way you want, but you still need to be careful. If fiancé is still hung up on the 50 over 50 to the point she forgets things that are more important than money, how is that going to work for things like purchasing a home or a vehicle or having children or whatever other large purchases that are a normal part of life? Good luck. OP, once we combine finances, I really can't see it being an issue. Right now, since it's really difficult where I live to combine finances unless you're married, I think she's just worried about feeling like she's not pulling her weight. Story 2. AITA for considering ending things with my wife because she refuses to let me be alone with our daughter. My wife got pregnant accidentally, and our daughter was born last year. Our daughter is 7 months old. Since her birth, my wife has been protecting our daughter from any interaction with men. In reality, she's always been wary of any male interaction. It took a long time for me to gain her trust and date her in the past. Other girls didn't have barriers to easily befriend her. With our daughter, my wife doesn't allow me to bathe her or even change her diaper without her supervision. I've tried talking to her about this, but she always sticks to the same point and refuses to explain much. I suspected if she had suffered any traumatic abuse, but she denied it. I also tried asking her family about this behavior, but they don't know either. I've even tried couples therapy, but she refuses to participate. Lately, this has led to many arguments and fights. It's horrible that I can't be alone with our daughter without her suspecting that I'll do something awful. I'm tired of arguing with her, tired of her behavior. I'm seriously considering telling her that I'll end things if this continues. From the comments, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. How was your wife before she was pregnant? Interactions with you, etc. Once she became pregnant, was she a completely different person? I'll wait for your responses before I ask anything else. OP, my wife is kind and attentive, but she changes when it involves our daughter. As I mentioned, she has always been a step back when it comes to interacting with men. She tends to be more sociable and make friends with the women in her company and more strictly cordial and professional with men. Story 3. AITA for not enabling my adult daughter and telling her that I am not paying any more of her tuition unless she can give me the time of day and show me some respect. I want to start off by saying that I have done everything for my children. I was there at the hospital for their births, signed the birth certificates, I changed diapers and always provided them with food and designer clothes. But my ex is extremely manipulative and has tried to turn my children against me since day one. She manipulated my older daughter who refused to talk things out with me. I will still forgive her once she finally decides to snap out of my ex's manipulations and come back to me. Me and my younger daughter Sarah had a great relationship until she suddenly flipped the switch in her senior year and also was poisoned against me. When Sarah was applying for college, I really didn't want her to go far because she has book smarts but lacks common sense, and I didn't want her to fall for scams. I even offered to buy her a car if she lived with me and commuted to a local school. But Sarah just said that the local programs didn't have what she wanted. I found it insulting because I went to a local college, and despite what my ex thinks, I am highly educated without some PhD. Sarah did not listen to my input at all. Her and my ex barely involved me in her college application process. My ex was extremely unhelpful. I would just ask basic questions like tuition since I was going to spend considerable funds, and she would either send website links. It would have only taken a few seconds for her to just answer the question so I can stay in the loop about what's going on. But this was just part of my ex's way of turning Sarah against me. Sarah enrolled at an out-of-state college, and I didn't even find out until May because my ex didn't bother telling me. I didn't even get to see Sarah off at the airport since she didn't tell me she'd left until after she was already gone. I constantly text Sarah asking how things are going. I send her funny posts on Facebook and ask her to call me. I even offered to split the cost of plane fare so Sarah could visit over the holidays. She only responds on email, and it's always her saying she's too busy. I am frustrated and tired of this. She is taking a lot of classes right now, but I'm her father, and it would only take a second of her day to just text me back or talk to me on the phone for 5 minutes. I have supported and been providing for Sarah since day one. I am done being disrespected when I have bent over backwards for 18 years to give her everything and have sent $7,000 just this year for her schooling. I could be doing a million other things with that money. Maybe I am at fault for enabling it for so long, but not anymore. I sent an email telling her that I am done with being disrespected, and if she can't even give me the time of day, then my ex can find someone else to split the cost of her schooling with. I sent the email over 2 hours ago and there's been no response. I know my wording might seem harsh, but I am just so done with being disrespected. From the comments, my biggest question here is, what did the children's mother use to poison them against you? OP, I have so many examples. The biggest one is how my ex used a car to poison Sarah against me. When Sarah got her permit, I offered to buy her a car if she lived with me full-time because it doesn't make sense to buy a car for a kid who's only at my house half the time. Sarah refused to reconsider 50-50 custody, and then my ex wound up buying her a car at her house without consulting me about it. My ex refused to let Sarah use the car at my house unless I paid half the cost of gas every month. I refused because my ex makes more money than me, and it's ridiculous she would expect that. I had to keep waking up at 6 every morning to take Sarah to school because my ex had to make things difficult for me.